So, welcome to our third episode of the KESEA Podcast. I'm very happy to have a guest with me today, Anca, who is the head of HR Europe for Do Group, which I recently met through one of my seminars. And I was very, very impressed, Anca, with your passion for HR and especially for recruiting. So after we had our conversations, I had a very self-serving thought that I would very much like to pick your brains, especially with regards to recruitment. You know, when we're talking with companies nowadays, both with their HR departments, as well as with the highest levels, directors, general managers, they find recruiting to be the most difficult thing in the HR function. So, we can start with that. After you tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us who you are, the highlights of your career. You have a very impressive CV. Tell us some things about you.
Thank you, Anna, for invitation. Yes, indeed, I'm very passionate about recruitment and HR in general. But if I have to pick from all the HR framework, I believe recruitment is my first love. Indeed, I have started in FX business in Cyprus about 16 years ago. And I worked in operations for the first part, and then I slowly transitioned into HR recruiting, and now I'm leading a few European and non-APAC teams for Do Group.
Fantastic. So, what I mentioned before is that the difficulty of doing recruiting, and what best to hear some insights and some tips and share some of your excitement about recruiting, if you can actually transfer it to us through this discussion. So, do you share that view that recruiting is difficult? Do you share the view that recruiting is difficult in Cyprus? You do a lot of international recruiting as well. Tell us a little bit about that. What are your thoughts?
I don't think recruitment is difficult. Okay. I think if we do it right, if we have the right intentions, if we have the right framework, the right why, I believe it's no more difficult to recruit in Cyprus than in any other place in the world. Now, what do I mean by that? Recruitment needs to be a talent acquisition. I like to refer to it more as talent acquisition. There is a difference there, and I feel that my peers are talking about it more and more, and I would like to emphasize that.
Yes, please do.
Talent acquisition is indeed a special division of the HR function, and if we do it right, I believe it can make or break the companies. Of course, lately, with the pandemic and with the changes in the candidate marketplace, there are a lot of changes. And I believe the companies that are struggling today are those who probably have left a bit behind and they're not displaying any, let's say, existential flexibility when it comes to recruitment and what's going on the planet. But in any other market, any normal market without economical crisis, you should be able to recruit just as fine.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
That's your opinion. I want to stay a little bit on that because we hear more and more from our clients that, especially in Cyprus, they cannot find talent. They cannot attract. So they announce and they get 1, 2, 3, 5 CVs, especially for some positions. So, and I remember in one of our conversations about other things, you mentioned something like, oh, I get hundreds of applications. I'm like, what is she talking about? What is she talking about? So even in Cyprus, that, in Cyprus we are in conditions of almost full employment, so we don't have unemployed people. We have so many new companies. We have the Forex. We have small, medium-sized companies, a large number of them. There are plenty of positions. So even in Cyprus, how can we attract more? How can we get 10, 20, 30, 50 CVs like the good old days? I have lived those good old days when we used to get so many CVs that we had to find quick ways to filter them. Now we get very few CVs.
Correct. It could happen definitely for very difficult to fill position, extremely technical, maybe a unique set of skills. We do struggle or we don't have, let's say, the conversion we used to have before. However, I found that with very solid employer branding, you need to attract. However, it's a non-stop job from the recruiter's point of view to be completely into talent acquisition, recruitment, headhunting, and kind of maintaining this relationship with the network we create. And that makes it a bit easier. Okay. Now, if I have to divide the whole recruitment process indeed and start to think of every single stage, I could say that primarily you need to understand why do you need to recruit for a certain role. The company needs to be very clear as to why a certain vacancy is needed. The hiring manager needs to be extremely clear as to why and what that candidate would do once hired. And the recruiter or the talent acquisition specialist, equally, they need to be very clear as to what the requirements are and what exactly that person will be doing. And try to project this for the next 2 to 5 years, let's say. Don't just think about the candidate as coming in, going out within a few seconds. Then, if I'm allowed to advise anybody anything, I would say try to source in multiple places. Use LinkedIn, use job boards, depending on the market you're tackling. But if we are to talk about Cyprus, I think in Cyprus we have so many options right now. Don't just go only on LinkedIn or any other very well-established job boards. Try to figure out where your ideal candidate hangs out, online and offline, if possible. Try to connect, try to do some market research, find out what they like, and try a different approach to recruitment. What I noticed in the past few years is that the way we approach candidates changed dramatically because candidates' expectations changed and they kind of spoiled nowadays, even though you're going to hear a lot of them saying, I'm applying for 1 million jobs and nothing comes back to me. I don't even get a notification. At the same time, companies are looking for candidates and sometimes it's very difficult to find the right fit. But establish your whys and try to break down your recruitment process into very, very small details. Make a thorough audit and check if you are indeed very real with your requirements, if you're very clear with your benefits, and try to A/B test your approach. And I can assure you, talent acquisition will become more and more easier. Conversion rates will soar and be higher and higher.
Okay. I was listening very carefully to what you were saying, and I noticed that many of the things you said, Anca, they actually have to happen before the recruitment process. So you said a very important keyword is a continuous process. And that, I'm sure you don't mean that I am recruiting continuously. I might need to recruit 10 people in a year, but I don't do recruitment only when I need those 10. That's what you meant, right?
Correct.
Fantastic. And you mentioned another important word, 2 words, employer branding. So that should take place not when I need the people, right?
Correct.
I need to work on that. I need to do things about that. And of course, I liked your correlation with Simon Sinek's find out your why. So even in recruitment, we can talk about our why. Why do we need the recruitment? And that's sometimes that we, as a recruiting agency, which is one of the services we provide, it's a difficulty we face with our clients to help them to figure out what they really need and why they really need it. And down the line, what you said, down the road, what will you do with this person to keep them? Because if you have so many difficulties attracting, sourcing, recruiting, and then placing in your company, shouldn't you be more careful not to lose these people? So now I'm coming back though to your comments before about all the work that needs to be done. And I keep continuous process, employer branding, and your whys, okay? And this is all before. Mm-hmm. So now if we go to the actual recruiting, you said, let's source. So now we're in Cyprus, of course, we have LinkedIn, we have job sites. We can mention some, it doesn't matter, it's not that. We have Ergodotisi, we have Karrierista, we have... Do you have any other sites that maybe people don't know much about and they can still find candidates?
I don't use them. I use LinkedIn.
You use LinkedIn, okay.
I use LinkedIn, I use networking, and I keep in touch with the candidates that I try to source at some point in time and I build a connection with. Okay. The beauty of this is that people think of a talent pipeline like a database or a library where you just store CVs and whenever you're in need, you go and you pull out a CV and there you go. But that's not quite the case.
I don't like that approach either. Whenever they ask me how many people you have in your database, I'm thinking that doesn't make me a good recruiter. I
don't have a database. Let's put it that way.
I like that.
The reason being is database would evolve. Whatever I have today within 5 minutes needs to be higher and bigger. I need to ask my candidates whether I selected them or not for a certain role, whether they agreed for us to continue with the interview process after we had the initial chats and we presented the company and the benefits and the packages and all that. We need to keep in touch. And this is the ability of the talent acquisition. That's why we call it talent acquisition. It's you have to look after your network. You have to address to these people like your own. You have to look after them. You have to grow them and you have to follow their progress. Obviously, if talent is good, it's going to stay on the market. Statistics showed about 10 days without a job. Therefore, if you don't make up your mind in 10 days, or if you have issues with getting a decision from the higher ups or the hiring managers to hire someone within 10 days, you can kiss that candidate goodbye. However, can you go back to the candidate anytime you want? That depends on the relationship you create and you build with the candidates. And studies showed actually that candidates will choose you over another company based on the relationship they form with you as a talent acquisition specialist during the interview process. Therefore, is the talent acquisition important? The specialist itself, the recruiter, extremely important. Is the link in between possibility and candidate. So, yes, it requires talent to find the right fit. hard skills, soft skills, cultural fit. However, if let's say you find the right candidate for a role that you know you're going to open in maybe 3 months' time, what do you do then and there? And this is where a talent acquisition specialist is a bit more careful at these details. So I believe everything is connected. I believe networking and doing something real for your network is very important. I had kept in touch with people that I never hired. There was a connection, there was something there that we nurtured and kept. And some even came back and gave a feedback along the lines of, this was the coolest rejection phone call I ever had. Mm-hmm. It is important, it's impactful, whether you work for a company as a talent acquisition specialist or you work as a recruiter in a recruitment agency, let's say. The way you connect with these candidates will always stick to them, and they will always prefer you over another person. So I would say that's very important. Mm-hmm. So my database, it's actually a series of relationships that I'm building with people, whether I hire them or end up hiring them or not. Mm-hmm. I like to keep in touch with them. I like to then maybe coach and educate. Maybe I would go there with some advice. Maybe I would invite them for, I don't know, a CV review session for free. Something that would help them. Maybe I identified there's something missing in there. It's a great talent, very poorly translated on paper. Therefore, let me do something so he has a better chance. And yes, there is such a thing as a hiring manager bias when it comes to this. You know the candidate is great. Maybe he had a bad day during the interview and his presentation was not the best, let's say. And then he gets met with a no. What do you do with that candidate? You just discard and dismiss. So all these little details, I believe they can amount to building some good relationship and keeping those relationships over the years. I don't think we are in an era where people would change jobs every month. We all look for some sort of a stability. And also depending on the industry we are choosing, we may be lucky to stay with a company for a very long time or not. But in average, 2.5 years, people do change jobs. This is what statistics would indicate. Therefore, who do I go to as a candidate on a free market when I'm looking for a job? So obviously, there's a relationship there that if it was built and nurtured and kept, I think I would go to the person who gave me advice, the person who coached me, the person who was real in presenting the company as it was.
So they come back to you, you're saying?
Yes.
They will come back to you after 1-2 years.
That's my database. I think
because I'm thinking how difficult it is, because this is a personal relationship you develop. How difficult is it to keep it with a large number of people? How do you do it? You obviously find time to do
creative.
it.
Yes.
You get
creative. You organize events online, offline, and keep your network active. Give something so you can ask for something back, or test your candidates for the future. Indeed, anything would do. It's like with any other relationship. I don't think it's any different. And as long as we see this more than a work relationship in that sense, like I'm just doing my job, I have a requisition and I need to fill in a role and that's it, and then I forget about that person, that's going to make a difference. That attitude will make a difference. That's why we track candidates back to 10, 15 years. I have people that I know what they've done in the past 15 years, how many times they changed jobs. You see they changed their job on LinkedIn, send them a message. What happened? Why did you leave? What? It's a continuous assessment for you as well, to understand what's happening on the market, what's happening with your competitors, maybe what's happening in the candidate's life.
I suppose when you keep in contact with them in such a way, you don't have to deal with GDPR issues.
Correct.
Because it's a personal relationship. So you don't come back and ask me, Anna, can I still talk to you?
Always.
While when you have a database, you continuously have to take care of your GDPR issues.
Definitely.
That's a smart way.
We can skip that.
It's a smart and legal way of skipping that. Yes.
Definitely.
It sounds very interesting. I mean, you're presenting a whole different approach to me than what is traditionally done. And not just traditionally. I mean, I see a lot of recruitment around me going by databases, keeping large number of people in databases or in recruitment systems and so on. And these require a lot of administration to me that might not be so pleasant while keeping in touch with
not
people.
My favorite word, yeah.
Yes, not my favorite word either. It's one of the reasons why I sort of went a little bit away from recruiting, but realizing nowadays how much it has changed and what you're sharing with us makes me think twice about, yes, it can be very interesting because it is about building relationships. And I am in HR because I like that part of building relationships rather than building relationships with paper.
A computer.
And computer, yes.
Correct.
Absolutely.
That is the best.
Yes. So you mentioned that in the last few years we have seen changes. I would like you to tell us if you have seen any characteristics in the candidates, especially with regards to their generations. If you see some characteristics on generation X, as a more adult generation, let's say, and then we have the Y, and then we have the millennials, and then we have the Zs. Do you notice any differences? What should we be looking at now when we're trying to attract them? And what are their differences with other generations?
Oh, they're definitely extremely different, and everyone works with a different level of motivation, let's say. Now, if you have a successful talent acquisition career, let's say, or you're trying to build a successful talent acquisition career, it's always good to try to understand the demographics. Whether is, I would like to target that specific market, or I would like to target a specific age group. You need to understand the intrinsic motivators of all the individuals you are getting in touch with. And you're going to find that people are very, very different. I'm not going to refer to them as Gen X or Gen Z or the more younger generation. Their idea of reality, their idea of job is very, very different than what we were used to, what our generation, let's say, finds. We look for meaning in whatever we do right now. We look for meaning. It's a career or it's a career change, or we look for meaning and stability, and we treasure all the experience we have acquired up to now, and we try to put it in the service of the company that will hire us. So the pitch for our generation is very different. Whereas for the younger ones, career opportunities, definitely, and their chance to gamify their jobs to a certain extent. Also, you have to understand their personalities. That's secondary, but it goes kind of hand in hand. So you will be successful in pitching certain roles, but definitely they all look at some sort of a plan. And the plan needs to be short-term, long-term, medium-term as well. I don't think there's a very big gap. However, the motivators are different. Younger generation requires more flexibility when it comes to work conditions. Yes, they want to build a career, but they're not as motivated as we were. Let's say, if I have to refer to us as the generation who's a bit more well-established. They want more flexibility, more work-life balance. They think about mental health to a certain extent, but they want a lot of time for themselves and they want to break it big, and they are attracted to roles that would pay them large sums of money very quickly. So if you manage
with a lot of flexibility and
with
less hours and work less.
Correct.
So yeah, because you haven't mentioned money, and I was about to ask, but
we always mention money.
Yes.
This is one of the differences in between the traditional recruitment and the way we used to do things 10 years ago, even 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we were still talking about don't mention that, or leave the salary package, compensation and benefit package for the second stage interview, let's say. Don't get into the nitty-gritty. Right now, you can't even initiate a discussion
unless you mention
that, and that needs to be very well established, and that's actually the condition sometimes to continue inviting a candidate in the interview process or not. This is my package, this is who we are. This is our EVP.
So you are
document. Are you willing to continue this conversation?
So you are for disclosure.
Definitely.
Yes. We have a difficulty on that with many companies, that they don't want to know, but they don't want to say the salary, because then the people who are working for me already, they might see it and they might get upset. Or I don't want my competitors to see it. And they have they're very hesitant about sharing, about being
starting
transparent.
2026, they will be obliged to share it with the new directive.
Thank you for mentioning that.
We are going that way anyway.
Yes.
I think levels, salary bands should be there. If you don't want to give a definite number, at least give an interval. Say something, give something. Maybe that's the reason you have difficulty attracting talent.
Yes.
And the difficulty in attracting talent doesn't always come from, okay, LinkedIn doesn't work as much for me, or my network is not as big. Sometimes it comes from the way you treat your existing employee. Going back to the employer branding, it's a cycle. So you can be very good at attracting the right talent. However, the second they step in, if what you pitched to what you are actually doing as a company with the existing employee are in dissonance, then definitely something's wrong. Hence, I'm going back to what is your why? Why are you trying to hire this person? Now, maybe you can promote internally. Maybe you can do internal hiring. Why would your existing employees be upset if they see what you're offering to the new candidate? Maybe you don't have, or you're looking for a set of skills that you were not able to grow within your own organization, which is fine. Everybody should be okay with that. But have you offered that opportunity to your existing employees? So there's always something there. There's a cycle.
Or are you compensating them fairly?
Correct.
Because if you are, you shouldn't be afraid if they know what you will give.
This was a lot this was a lot treated. Couple of years ago, I had a chance to work for an international company, and indeed, we found from the talent acquisition team that sometimes the budgets for headcount that were allocated by the CFO at that stage were not real, were not really according to market research. So what I would suggest, never skip a salary benchmarking exercise and do it as often as possible. And it's not only the inflation or the war in Ukraine or whatever happens on the territory. Things happen all the time. You need to make sure that at least you're competitive. Even if you are at the lower level to what the fair market price is for a certain position, make sure that you at least tick that and try to compensate with other benefits at the same time.
How can you benchmark? You mentioned benchmarking with salaries, because that's another complaint we get here. We don't know what everyone else is giving. So how can we find that out?
Oh, there are a lot of ways you can be doing that. And I can give you a few examples of the things we've done this year. We were trying to open a market and we had zero exposure there, no candidates, no network. We were nobody and they were nobody for us in terms of knowledge. And it wasn't ideal necessarily, and I would not recommend it as, you have to do this first thing, but it was an option, and it was a very viable option to start with. We actually ran a survey among 2,000 something candidates and for various positions, and we asked them what would be their preference. We couldn't find anything online. We couldn't find any advisor, any company, any outsourced vendor that could give us a view onto, okay, what would be the salaries for this market? So we asked the candidates. It was amazing.
Were they honest?
Because they were correct. You couldn't have inflated data from 2,000 candidates. So anyway, we calculated an average, but for every role, we had about 100 and something replies from the candidates saying, I would like this and I would like that. Some of them helped us a great deal, even saying, if you're going to hire me as an employee, I would like this. If you're going to hire me as a contractor or a service provider, I would like to receive this. And then we started doing more advanced market research to understand what's going on that market, what would be, the cost of living, what are the benefits, and so on and so forth. And this all came from the candidate. It gave us a clue that we are close to it, or this is what we should expect. And we never failed the negotiation discussion with any of those candidates based on this data. But yeah, I recommend for well-established markets now, there's so many sources, there's so many companies who do provide salary data. There are a lot of payroll providers that are issuing their reports, some quarterly, some of them twice a year. I suggest you subscribe and you just try to figure out 2-3 other reliable sources and make an average so you know how competitive you are. I always like to get this from 3 sources. Probably this is my journalistic background. I always try to
check it. Double check your sources.
Correct.
Triple check.
However, I also consider my talent acquisition, local talent acquisition specialist as a very reliable source of information. Like, who's in touch with the candidates on daily basis? Obviously, is my talent acquisition specialist. So they hear, I want this, I would require this, this would be an expected salary for this level. Therefore, those are also important sources of information that would help you understand where exactly you should set your limits.
Okay. Now, with regards to compensation packages, because that's a very important part in the recruitment process, can you tell us a little bit about what do you think a compensation package should contain? And I don't mean the amounts, as opposed to what it contained 10, 15 years ago. Like, how has that changed? And what should companies include in their compensation package to be able to attract talent?
This is very easy.
Very easy. Money? No.
No. Okay. Let's leave money on the side. Yes. Let's consider that we have a good headcount budget that was established, and it was established based on research and market research, and we have some levels. We know what money is going to cost us to hire these people. You get your local staff and you run a survey, very real one. If you want to do it anonymously, just to make sure people are real. And you ask your existing employees, what do you want? What would you prefer? Like you said, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would get a salary. You would probably get a medical insurance, a private medical insurance. There were some companies offering a bit of a provident fund, but it wasn't as widely spread, let's say. And I think that was it. Maybe a 13 salary. Maybe. So this was kind of the industry, minimum industry standard. After that, every company personalized their benefit package based on the demographics they would hire, the age groups they would hire. So if I go with yoga classes to a company who hires primarily male employees, that's more likely to fail. So my suggestion is always ask your staff. They will always come up with ideas and see what percentage, what's the highest percentage. Try to figure out what your budget is and just offer them what they want. Some want more learning opportunities, career progression, wellness-related benefits. There's a trend right now, and people are very much aware of what it means to work remote, to look after yourself, to have time for your personal thing, to have such a flexible schedule that you kind of blur the lines in between what you do and who you are as a person. So they want more flexibility. But ask your people. It's so easy. It's so handy. Just do whatever. Yes, they will be real. It's something for them. Establish your budget and then just add to that. Now, it's not a bad idea that every year you should run an audit of your compensation and benefit package and see what sticks, what has been adopted. Don't just assume people want that.
They will continue
assume that they will all go to that gym where you manage to get a cheaper subscription, let's say, based on volume. Maybe, you're just throwing money away. Maybe trends have changed. Maybe you can do something else that would make them happy. So when I say it's easy because it's very, it could be very personalized. And I think that's the real, that's something that you could do for your company, for your staff, in a very easy way.
To connect that with the rest of the work we do, the consulting work, I like the expression benefit packages a la carte, which means that you don't establish the same benefits for everybody, but you let them choose. So you can have similar value benefits, and for one it can be a gym subscription. For another, they can choose kindergarten subscription for the children, for example. So we find that in the rest of the work we do in HR, that people have a variety of needs and wants depending on where they're at and what their characteristics. So I suppose, and to make the connection, it would be interesting to hear your opinion, though you mentioned quite a few things about that, to connect all the HR functions with the recruiting part. And tell us what you think about that. How does it connect? How much they influence each other?
Oh gosh, I don't think any of them exclude each other. I think when you talk about the life cycle of an employee, everything affects everything else, and then it goes backwards. So it's a circle. How you start, how you continue, how you retain. All you need to do is to envision, okay, I want to hire this team, and I'm looking at my team 5 years from now, and I need to establish exactly what I want them to do and where I want them to be. And then reverse engineering what they're going to be doing each year, each quarter, each month, what you are going to offer. And this is how you design your recruitment strategy, your pre-onboarding, onboarding, your retention strategies as well. All it depends on exactly what I said at the beginning. What is your why? Why you're in this business? What's the value you're trying to add to the world through your services? This is established, then you know exactly what sort of people you want to hire in your team to accomplish that goal. And then you need to establish what you're going to be doing for them so you can get the best out of them and for them to feel extremely well looked after in order to give you back that talent. I think it's very important who you bring to the company, who you promote, and who you let go, and how you let go. And everything affects recruitment, and then even the exits affect retention and the way you will continually attract talent. It's reputational. It's as simple as that. And I found that companies may spend a lot of time, effort, and money in understanding the recruitment process, and they treat the exits like an afterthought, let's say. And that could be a big mistake. So I never recommend that. I think we should part ways with the same care and compassion and empathy and all the good human emotions we displayed at the beginning when we try to reel them in. So that the ones that stay feel protected. Even if we're going to part ways for whatever reason, we're going to stay professional. I'm going to feel looked after, and so on and so forth. So I would say everything affects everything else. And there's no separation in between that process and that process. I don't think there's a process who's more important than another. Maybe sometimes we need to pay attention to more things at the same time for it to go very well and very long for us. But I don't think there's one which is more important than another, even though I love recruitment.
And it was interesting before you said that we expect somebody to stay about 2.5 to 3 years, let's say. So we shouldn't try to do anything to keep them longer. We get that question or asked all the time. I want them to stay longer. What can I do? What's
you
the
retain
answer?
them. If you want them to stay longer, obviously retain them. Treat them well. Obviously, if you feel like your employee doesn't perform, you won't maybe try.
But they're talking about the ones that they want to keep, but they leave anyway. I mean, we see companies doing giving more things, having parties, happy hours, ice cream days, happy days, giving expensive gifts. And you see the employees living anyway. And we're always wondering what would get them to stay more than the 2.5 or the 3 years? Or do we somehow want them to leave at that time? Because most companies say, no, we want to keep them, but they leave no matter what we do.
Yeah, well, you can sort that out with something I call stay interviews. It's not something I invented. It's something I read and it stuck with me. We do exit interviews. We collect data as to why do people leave our company. Question is, what do we do about it? I think we discussed a bit of this during our initial encounter. And I always said, it's really nice to collect data and it's really good to take decisions based on the data. Not just collect it and leave it there. So to go back to what I said, we collect this data and then we have to improve.
Act on it.
And exactly. So maybe I offer you 7 things in my compensation package. And these 7 things were okay for you when you started with me. But we shouldn't be looking at candidates as the same candidate I had 2.5 years ago. It's a person. It grew. Life happens. Maybe whatever was important back then is not important anymore right now. So maybe some other things will make me happy or will make me stay. So if you run quarterly or even twice a year, stay interviews with your staff, what would make you stay? What I should stop doing as a company, what I should improve, what I should add, let me know your thoughts. And then figure out how you can accommodate that. Some people just like to move. And there's always a question of whether I would like to hire someone who stayed with the company for the same company for the past 10 years. And for some recruiters would say, yeah, this breeds stability, loyalty. And it very much depends on the role I have at hand. Yes, I want stability. Yes, I want loyalty. But I also want someone that was exposed to many ways of doing and performing the same job. And maybe someone who had a 10-year tenure is not the best fit for me. Or will that person be able to change and improve and stay abreast with whatever happens on the market and change a bit the gears? Did they have sufficient exposure to this to be able to take on this role? So it's always a question of what the other person wants and what the company is able to do to retain them.
Yes, you mentioned about the tenure. I was doing recruitment at the time where you saw CVs that had, 2, maximum 3 jobs on them, and somebody had 15 years of experience. And we always thought that that's a good sign. And when we started seeing CVs that somebody changed jobs every 2 years, we're thinking, oh, this is not a stable person. And now we come to the point where we want people to have changed jobs because we want them to be more flexible. We want them to be more adaptable. There is so many changes around us. So we see many different kinds of CVs now. And this changes the whole procedure of how we evaluate things. And of course, we cannot finish our discussion unless I ask the question, skills or attitude?
Oh, gosh.
we have to cover that, right? Both, yeah?
Both.
Okay.
Both. And it pretty much depends on knowing your team and knowing your stakeholders. If I have to think about what do you do as a recruiter before you even introduce candidates to the hiring manager in order not to waste their time, do your behavioral interviews. Understand what sort of person you need to bring to that team. some hiring managers, some heads of departments or team leads, they are obviously looking to hire their weakness or their strength. Yeah, depending on where they want to take that department. And as a recruiter, you need to understand what exactly you're looking to hire. I can give you 5 people with the same hard skills, extremely well recommendations. I can run a background check, everything, it's perfect. Who do we hire? We hire based on personalities. We hire based on management style. Maybe I don't like this person. Maybe this person will not gel well within the team. And then we just wasted 3-4 months of our time and that person is not going to be happy either. So it's always a combination. I think you can train skills. I think attitude is very important, and there's a lot of emphasis on this lately, and I tend to agree with it. Now, do you have the bandwidth to train these skills? Because if you don't, then you have to be very, very clear from the beginning. These are the candidates that I would like to hire for this role. We started doing this the past couple of years, and especially now in my team, we really focus on these calibration calls that we have with the hiring managers. And sometimes we may stall the recruitment by at least couple of sessions until we get very clear with regards to who exactly do you want to hire in your team. I understood the job description. I understood the scope. I saw the career path. I understood exactly what you want from this person, but I need to understand who do you want this person to be. What sort of personality, what sort of even age group could make a difference. Yeah, if you know your hiring manager doesn't particularly like female employees for whatever reason, demands on the job, maybe night shifts, and you tend to be a bit more protective towards that category of employees, then obviously you're not going to present him 90% of your candidates as female candidates if you know that. So we try to get into the mind of the hiring manager to surgical precision sometimes. No, you need to tell me exactly, and I'm going to present you 3-4 people. And I would like you to tell me what did you like best about their attitude, their personality, their the way they present themselves even, and how do they want to act? Do you want them to act on day-to-day basis with yourself, with the team, with the management team, cross-departmental, and so on and so forth? And we do that in order to know exactly who we are looking for when we go out there. Or to identify it within the candidates that we may have interviewed yesterday or last week for a similar role with a lot of transferable skills, let's say, and we didn't take into account because of their, personalities. So I think it's so important to find that right combination. Do psychometric testing if that helps you. Do it to understand. Don't spend a lot of money hiring the worst and very expensive employee just to have it thrown out or managed out of the business 6 months down the line because he pissed everybody off. Or
Yes. What we hear often is that I don't have a choice who to hire because I don't get many options. And what I'm hearing from you, Anca, is that if you do things right, you will have more options and then you will have a choice as to who you will hire. And to me, all that you are saying now connects with what is really a recruiter or a talent acquisition specialist. And to me, it sounds like this person is a consultant. Is a consultant both to the candidate and to the hiring manager or to the company or to the general manager.
Agree.
And the consultant, a true, real consultant, does deep work. It's not passing around CVs. Oh, yes, I have a CV. Here is 3
Never.
CVs. Yes. To me, it sounds very much like it's consulting work.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And with that, as we're drawing near the close of our discussion, and I mean, actually, I could go on for another couple of hours with you. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. And yes, we need to insist with our clients to be finding out their whys, because many times, you know, they don't have time, they're in a hurry. I need someone. So, yes, let's discuss what exactly you need, but I don't have time. Do you have somebody? And you're in this mode of continuously looking, but never really doing things right to have this, what we call, and I'm sure you know, the right fit. And you just find anybody and then you lose that person. It's very normal that you lose a person because the person is not suitable for your company, or the company is not suitable for the person, and then you're in the same cycle over and over again. So we need to convince our clients, we need to convince companies that they need to do all the HR cycle properly, and especially the part of the employer branding. We're trying very hard to talk about that with companies, that employer branding is the most important thing for your recruiting and for your retainment. So connecting all the things that you shared with us, Anca, today, gives me hope. Of course.
I'm happy.
And I would like to give back to you to close with your final thoughts, maybe some highlights, some tips. I don't know if you have any secrets you haven't shared with us, please do.
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think we have to evolve with the times. Mm-hmm. And I feel when you're saying about your clients that they in such a hurry that they cannot really stop and audit whatever they are doing now. Mm-hmm. From my position, I sometimes have to pitch this to CEO, CFO, people that I work with and report to directly. And I understand that usually they understand numbers. They don't really go for the context, for the fluff, as they sometimes call it, especially if it comes from the HR department. They still that a bit of attitude of, we are a bit more lie than the rest
Soft.
of the team. But if you understand how much it costs you a bad hire per year, and every company will make one bad hire per year, but I would rather do that than a series of 10, 15 hires per annum, if that's my goal for 2025, let's say, just because I could have invested 10 days to go through my processes to understand what exactly I'm looking to hire and what I'm willing to offer, and be very clear with that. Mm-hmm. I think the key is clarity from everyone involved in the recruitment process. The candidate, the talent acquisition specialist, and the company. Everyone needs to be clear for this to be successful, because whoever you're hiring is going to take 180 to 200 decisions on your behalf on weekly basis. So if you're looking at your staff as an extension of yourself, as a person or as a business, then you're going to pay attention to that. If you want to save money, this is how you save money. If you want to increase profits, this is how you increase profits. I always said that. If you want to increase your profits, you have to fix your staff, your relationship with your staff, which includes your existing ones and your potential ones. Always.
what a better way to close our conversation.
Thank you so much for your time today,
Anca.
for the great questions.
Thank you for the insights. I think I'm going to hear the podcast once it's out a few times myself to hear again what you shared with us.
Me too.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.